our nice, refreshing, strong winter and entering into the beginning of spring. This is quite appropriate given the day that the Holy Church is set forth for us. This is a very special day for us Christians. Today marks the halfway point of the Great Lent. And certainly just as some people were shaking their heads unbelievingly when we began at the beginning of Great Lent to talk about how quickly it will pass, the same are shaking their heads today saying, how did it pass so fast? The moral of the story is not always to listen to what the priest says. That's not the point that I'm trying to make, although that's not necessarily the wrong thing. But nonetheless, we should take note that today is the halfway point of the Holy and Great Fast. For those who keep a good eye on the calendar and like to count the days until possible, you realize that if this is the halfway point of Great Lent, that my math is quite weak. Please remember, brothers and sisters, that we have Great Lent and then immediately begins Holy Week, which is not part of Great Lent. It's a separate Lent in itself, but there is no break between the two where ice cream might be allowed. Nonetheless, we count the Great Lent as one and Holy Week as separate. Why would it be that the cross is brought forth for our veneration on the third Sunday of Great Lent? As far as we can tell, this has always been the case. Some of the earlier feasts we talked about, the first Sunday being the prophets before it was the triumph of Orthodoxy, the second being St. Polycarp before it was St. Gregory Palamas. But this particular Sunday, as far as we can tell, it has always been after the cross. So why? Why is it that the cross is brought forth for our veneration today? Today is called Cresta Pogomna, the Sunday of the veneration of the cross. Certainly, I think we can say that it was not because there was a sort of a hole here that needed to be filled and the cross was handy and therefore it was brought out. No, there is a very specific reason, and that reason is that the cross, for us, has several meanings, all of which are important for us at this time of Great Lent. The cross for us is a consolation. It's true, before Christ, it was considered an instrument of perhaps mocking, certainly of evil. But after Christ, the cross is a symbol of great Christian power. We decorate our churches, our homes, even ourselves. Each of us should be wearing a cross. We will not check. But if you are not wearing a cross, you should be, and your children. And the infants also. We always found it easiest to pin the cross with a safety pin on their back. Not of their skin, of the clothes. So that they could not reach it or it would not be an issue for them. But nonetheless, we should all be wearing our cross as a symbol of Christ's victory over death, because first comes the cross, but then comes the resurrection. But nonetheless, the cross still has that meaning, that understanding of difficulty. We wear our cross as a symbol of victory, but we also wear our cross as a reminder that we are called to take up our cross and to follow the Lord. It's interesting, in today's gospel, there's a little different wording. In the Slavonic, it says, those who will save their souls will lose them, and those who will lose them will save them. In English, it's life. It's interesting, the difference in translation. We won't go deeply into that, but the fact of the matter is that the cross for us is also a reminder that we need to bear what we are being given. Sometimes we grumble against the cross that we are given, as if the Lord is giving it to us because He doesn't like us, or perhaps He needed somebody to take this cross and you were convenient and therefore He just gave it to you. There was some kind of random assignment of this cross. No, none of that is true. We must begin our understanding with the truth that God knows us better than we know ourselves. In the past, we have talked about this very nice story, and we'll say it again here briefly, of when a man was grumbling against his cross. For days and weeks and months, he grumbled against his cross. And finally, he had a dream. And the Lord spoke to him, and he was in a cave full of crosses, large and small, stone and gold and wood and all of this. And he said, okay, choose your cross. You don't like the cross I gave you? Choose your cross. And so, being the sort of grumbling person that he was very diligent. He went through and he looked at them all until he found this small cross made of olive wood. You've seen these probably. They come from the Holy Land. A lot of times people have them. And he grabs the cross and he hears the voice, "But wait, I thought you wanted a different cross. This is the cross that I already gave you." And don't you see the wisdom in this, brothers and sisters? The Lord gives us the cross that we need for our salvation. To grumble against it is just folly. It makes no sense. It means that we know better what is good for us than the Lord. And by the way, that's not true. God knows us better than we know ourselves. So let's not grumble against our cross. Let's also not exalt it. "Oh, the Lord gave me this big cross to bear. You know, I am going to bear it with such great wonderment, and people will fall down before me, and they will kiss my feet," and so on and so forth. Needless to say, that is not the attitude that we should be taking with our interaction with God. Rather, we should humbly accept what the Lord gives us as best for our salvation. Those who have a heavy cross usually feel that they need lighter. Those who have lighter often feel they need heavier because they should be allowed to struggle more. Again, let us reiterate. God knows us best. He knows us better than we know ourselves. And He gives us what's best for our salvation. If this is the message that we can take from this day, then brothers and sisters, we've made a great leap forward in our spiritual lives. But the cross also reminds us of where we are going. What are we doing in this great land? Are we just waiting around for Pascha? No, we are not. There's a path that we are treading in this great land. It begins on the faraway shore of the first week, which seems so long ago now. And that path leads to where? It leads to Jerusalem. It leads to the great and glorious entrance of our Lord. But shortly thereafter, His betrayal and His cross. As Christians, we are called to take up our cross and to follow the Lord. If the cross was for the Lord and we are His, then the cross is also for us. And we have to understand that that is where we are going. How sad it is that some will come on Palm Sunday and rejoice with the Lord as He comes into Jerusalem, and then appear again only on Pascha, and rejoice again as the Lord rises from the dead. It's better than those that don't come, don't get me wrong. But we kind of missing a few things there between Palm Sunday and Pascha if we don't tread that path with our Lord that leads to the cross. So brothers and sisters, let's see the cross for what it is. Yes, a symbol of victory, and we rejoice. And it's our consolation that we have come halfway through the great Lent now. But also, the cross is for our salvation, that we may bear ours without grumbling, and even with thankfulness that the Lord gives us what's best for our salvation. And finally, to remember that this is the path to which we have been called. The path which our Lord is also treading. It will not be very long in the services we will begin to hear these sorts of things like Lazarus is sick. When we hear this, we know we are coming close to the great and holy week. That great and holy week has as its center the cross, but in the end is victory. If we, brothers and sisters, can bear our crosses, then we too will experience that same victory of resurrection, both this year at the feast of our Lord's Pascha, and on that last day of the general resurrection, when we will rejoice with the Lord and all those risen in His name. May the Lord grant this to all of us. Amen.